Hey everyone, James here from JVZ Paints. I'm pretty stoked today because it feels like my mojo has finally come back after its prolonged absence of months and months. And I finally have something done to show you out there. As an added bonus, I've got a little basing tutorial on how to base up ancients that don't rank up so easily. Also, there's a channel recommendation at the end, so please stick around for that. I've put timestamps below too, if in case you want to jump around, skip bits, feel free. But let's get stuck in. So today we have the Victrix Armored Gallic Infantry in 28mm. It's a pretty good kit and with lovely detail and lots of options. The rank and file sprue comes with 4 bodies and a bunch of options for heads, swords, spears, shields. 3 bodies have the chainmail and one has a cuirass that might have been lifted off of a Carthaginian or maybe even an heirloom that their great-grandfather got from fighting Greeks or Etruscans. As you can see here, I chose roughly, what I wanted to do here is I tried to do a rough even split of 50-50 spears and swords. So you'll see on some stands, he's got a spear, we got 2 swords, but then on over here we've got got 2 spears here and with a sword on this one stand back here. You get 2 command sprues. There are 3 bodies on each sprue. One is obviously the chief, it's this guy here. And we get an armored one here, and then you get a guy just in a shirt. So we'll take, I got 2 of these guys in the shirt, so we'll just pop this guy out and put him in the front rank here. Excuse my fucking giant hands here. As you can see, he's just in his shirt. He's not armored. He's the one guy who's not armored. So he's in an Irish rugby shirt of sorts. The Victrix Gallic Chariot set comes with 2 warrior sprues. And so what I've done is I've elected to keep the commanders, the one command group from this set, which would just basically be the chief and this armored guy here. I elected to keep them out to make a command stand, and I just put in the other 2 guys. So it gave me a full mob of 30. I've got 5 bases this way, 2 bases this way. The bases are all 40 by 40. I put 3 guys on each base. And this way I've got 5 this way, 2 this way, but then I've halved a couple bases, so what I can do is I can have the chief or the champion or the commander or whatever, he can be in the center. We can go 2 this way, 5 that way. It's just pretty convenient for gaming, I guess. When I was painting them, I was doing about 4 at a time to avoid burnout, which for me for the last couple of months has been a big problem. I primed them black and then I dry brushed them with a slightly off-white color for the guys with chainmail. That was the first thing I did. After doing the flesh, I did the clothing, and then I tried to do a mix and match the colors to keep the painting, a little bit more brisk. So like I would do, for example, okay, we do this guy's cloak blue, and then at the same time I do this guy's pants blue. Okay, here's his red on there, and then I would do the red on here. So this way I could work with the red, green, and blues, and brown sometimes, just to sort of keep the pace going instead of, oh, I'm going to do this guy green, and he's going to have brown pants. I, focus that way to keep it moving. After I did the tartans and all the stripes on these guys, I have a very old video on how to do that when I was doing the warlord guy. You can go along and when you're doing the tartans and the stripes and stuff, you can see which colors work really well with each other and which ones don't. I imagine in reality they had a lot more greens and blues than I have here. These guys are pretty primary color. They're not Warhammer 40k 2nd edition primary colors, but they're pretty bright. After the tartan, I'd do the leather bits, the shoes, trim around the chainmail. I don't know if you can see that on some of these guys. So for example, this guy in the center here, you can see he's got some leather around his chainmail there. You can maybe just spot it. Whoops, sorry about that, Chief, right there. Okay. And then I would also do the accent colors on the cuirasses. Let's bring one of the cuirasses. Well, you can see it just here in the corner, this guy here, right? I've gone around and I've done red. And depending on like how much time I had or the mood I was in, I might do like 2 highlights, but usually it was just like base color, 1 highlight, done. Then I went over their jewelry and stuff like that, their torques and bracelets. I reprimed them black, and then I went over it with a gold. If it was a larger gold area, like on this helmet here on the chief or on the shield bosses and stuff like that, I would give it a little wash of olive drab. I don't go that browny red color for this color. I usually go like olive drab. It usually looks a little bit better. And then the final thing I would do is just the edged weapons. I do the spears and the swords and just do them in metal. I put a lot of ginger guys in there, a lot of blonde guys. You might notice that. I don't know. I like doing that kind of stuff. But a lot of them just have that giant, awesome, walrus mustache, biker mustache. So that's the only indication of any kind of hair color because of the helmets. I did the shields freehand too. I did the shields along with the figures in the same way. So I do 4 figures, 4 shields. And then I would do like 4 blue shields at a time or 4 green shields at a time just to keep it steady. And then I would keep the shields to the very end. I'm going to put some photos up of these guys at the end, and then I'll do a quick flyby at the end too. I've got a channel recommend at the end. And but yeah, let's check out the basing tutorial and how I base these guys. Hopefully we'll find something useful. Basing 28mm ancients that don't rank up easily like Romans or phalanxes do can be a total pain in the ass, and I know this firsthand. The first ancients that I did were the Warlord Games Gauls, and trying to get 4 of those guys on a 40x40 base was almost impossible. It was like a 3D puzzle. They were all hitting each other and stabbing each other's shields in each other's faces. So I went 50x50, and that seemed to work. But then when I did my ancient Germans, I decided to do just 3 figures per a 40x40 base, and it worked out really well. So that's what this tutorial is about today. We've got these Gauls here, and this is how I started off. So these guys are all on there. They're dry fitted on there. I'm going to remove these 2 guys because the first step, what you're going to do is you're just going to glue the one guy down to the base. But we've already determined that they're all going to fit on the base. This guy, you just glue him down. Then we move on to the next little phase. In the next stage, we're going to put on some putty on the figure on the base, on the figure's base, I guess. So these guys are dry fitted like the other ones, so we'll just remove them so you can see. And what I've done here is I've taken some 2-part epoxy putty and I've run around the lip of the figure's base and smoothed it down to make a nice contour to the actual stand that the 3 will be on. I use this 2-part epoxy putty. It's from Tamiya, so it's Tamiya epoxy putty. It's very cheap here. If you're in North America, I'm sure you can find a 2-part epoxy putty at any Home Depot or DIY place. You could use green stuff. I imagine it's pretty expensive. And if Milliput is available, I'm sure Milliput would be pretty good too. So he's done, and we're going to check out the next phase here. But it's just basically a repetition. So we've got the one guy down, he's glued down, we've puttied him, then we move on to the second guy, and we do the exact same thing. You putty him down. Once he's puttied down, you can glue down the third guy. So these guys are all glued on there, and this last guy, he would just need to be puttied. They all fit on the base. Their weapons aren't hitting each other, and their shields should not be touching each other either. So it's perfect. Let's move on to the next phase. The next phase gets a little bit dirty. In this phase, what we're doing is we're putting white glue over the entire base, with the exception of the edges here. As you can see, I've tried to keep it as clean as possible. You're putting white glue, PVA glue, Elmer's glue, whatever, all on the base. Good idea is to leave, maybe you can see with this foot here, if I point right there, you can see, whoops, shouldn't be moving the stand. Just try to leave a millimeter or 2 from the boot or shoe when you're putting on the white glue, because when you put the sand on, the sand will kind of sneak into that sort of crevice anyway. And what you got to watch out for, it's not a huge deal, as you can see on this guy's foot here, right there. You might get a bit of sand on there. Let's turn them around. It might get some more. As you can see, you can get a bit of sand and things. If you're pretty sloppy with the glue, you'll end up getting sand all over the legs and things like that, and you'll have to go back and clean it up. Even if it's not perfect, like you can see, there's some areas here that don't have any sand on it. Not a big deal. We'll clear that up later. But yeah, you put the sand on. You've got to let it dry. I would say overnight is the best thing you want to do, because the next phase is painting. And it could get really messy. Next phase is painting. All I did here is I've gone over the entire base once the sand was dry with a dark chocolate brown. I usually go for a consistency of kind of like a melted ice cream consistency, or like a yogurt drink kind of thing. I would water it down. I wouldn't take it right out of the pot. Because it doesn't have to be perfect, and there's no point in wasting your paint on the base, and you'll probably be covering most of it up later with the groundwork. But yeah, just go through, be careful around the feet again. You don't want to slosh paint all over everything, just be mindful of that. So in the dry brush phase, what I've done is I've gone over the brown. Once it's dry with sort of a golden brown color, and I've dry brushed out on the edges and by the feet. In the center, let me tilt it up a little bit so you can see, you don't really have to get into the middle because there'll be a lot of shadow there anyway. The same thing with underneath the figures themselves. You can sort of touch at it, but you don't have to like hammer it in there. You don't really have to get it done. Once you've done that kind of first highlight with the dry brushing on all your bases, you can go back. I mix in like a cream color. I would say almost like a 50-50 consistency, because really all you really want to do at that point is just do the edges. It was just like doing like old Warhammer bases. You sort of highlight the edge of the bases. So you just go around, do the edges, you might, maybe a little, if there's a stone or something like that, a little high-rise area, you could do that as well. So let's take a look at the next phase. The next phase is another one of the long phases. where we require a lot of drying time. Here I'm using my half bases to show the next stage. What you do here is the same thing. You're going to need more white glue, and you're going to cover about 70%, I would say about 70% of the base, maybe 75% of the base. You don't have to cover the entire base. Just try to keep it flush. But cover the base in glue, and then what you do is after you've put the white glue on there, oops, sorry for knocking the camera there, you're going to put on your static, one of those phases where you've just got to let it sit and you can't rush it. So you should just sort of, with the idea of, okay, once you put the static grass on, you're going to have to leave it probably for at least, I would say, a couple hours, minimum. Best is to let it dry overnight. Okay, this is the penultimate phase for our stand. What I've done here is once the static grass is all dry, I've put on tufts and bits of flock. Tufts I usually only put on one kind of tuft. You might put on 2 or 3 of them, but I don't try to really mix and match. But you can do whatever you want. With flock, I usually try to just use 2 colors. So here I've got like a light green flock, and if we turn this stand this way, you can see right there we've got a kind of a dark green flock. The figures look good. The base is flush. I've also gone around probably here at this point and I've painted the edges to make sure that they look nice and brown. And now we'll check out the ultimate phase when the figures are all done, ready for spraying. The final phase for the stands for me is shields. I always put the shields on last. I find that you put them on last, you have a less chance of getting crap on them, sand, paint, static grass, all that kind of stuff. So the shields are absolute last for me. In the case of Gauls, though, because they're kind of like barbarians and they're kind of, you know, random outfits and things like that, I'll go through and I'll make sure that sort of like the shields kind of contrast with whatever the figures are wearing. So this guy's got a green shield, but he's got a blue and red tartan. Here he's got the blue and yellow checks and red, but he's got yellow and red pants on. This guy here, he's got his white cuirassier and a yellow and black tunic. I've given him the red shield. You can maybe see on the back of these two, I mentioned it I think maybe before, I also paint the back of the shields. I think I've got a couple here. I tend to paint the back of the shields. Just a little simple thing you can do. That's not really a great one. I want to get a better one here. Oh, this one looks pretty good. What you can do is, they don't have to be perfect at all because most people won't even notice it, but what I do is I'll paint them like a burgundy color, and then I'll use like a flesh color and just I'll paint down the wood grain, and then when that's dry, heavy brown wash, and then when that's done, I'll just go back over the metal in black, and it looks kind of cool. You know, it gives them kind of an interesting sort of thing. I mean, you're at playing them, you're always going to be seeing them from this side anyways. You're going to be looking at the back of the figures anyway, so it gives you something to know that you put in some extra work. Okay, so that's it. That's how I do these stands. I hope somebody found that helpful. I don't know. We'll see. You can tell me in the comments below. But let's get back to the whole finished mob and some photos and a flyby. Well, I hope that was helpful or at least interesting for you. A little bit of a process that I go through basing these kind of things. So yeah, guys, I have the Gallic chariots to do, and I have the naked fanatics, and I'm going to make that command base. So those will be in future videos. Hopefully that'll be done sooner rather than later. And now that my mojo's back, hopefully pretty soon. Because I'm hoping to get these guys done so that my mate and I, Gio, we can play either a game of Hail Caesar or Warhammer Ancient Battles before New Year. That would be great, because I think the second edition's coming out. We've never even played a game of Hail Caesar. But anyway, so here's the flyby. You can check out some of the armor and shields of these guys in the back. I'm going to put some snaps up here at the very end. I've also got a channel recommendation. It is Macc's Armies of Middle-earth. I stumbled across it last weekend, and yeah, it's a laugh and a half. He's got a great sense of humor. I don't even play the Middle-earth game, but of course everybody can appreciate Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you know, reading them in school and stuff like that, and the films, of course, are great. So yeah, go check it out. It's very genuine. His channel's exploded. I think I was subscriber 509. I think he's already up to like 530 or something like that while I'm filming this. So anyways, guys, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe, of course. And I'll see you in the next one. You guys keep those brushes moving and check out the snaps at the very end. Take it easy, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.